Thanks. Thank you, guys. Now we're recording everything, so it's just like a content bonanza. We're actually recording it it's recording in 360, so which is great. And we've got some 2D, 4K as well. Thanks for having me along. How many people here are actually currently producing 360 content? Excellent. We've got two. Is it on a bit of a roadmap for some people in the room? Is it in the next 3 or 6 months? Hands up. Who's here just out of general interest and just sort of keeping ahead of trends? Yeah, fantastic. It's pretty new. Today's chat's going to be around some tactical executions of 360. There's a range of 360. Think of it like a technology spectrum. You've got sort of some simple, easy ways to implement it as a mobile journalist, all the way up to crazy filmic Hollywood-style productions that cost the earth and need really serious investments of time and money. But today's focus is going to be around what we've been doing, this smaller style camera that allows you to get in and out and create some great timely content and turn it around without too much time or without too much capital investment. I'm going to bore you with some slides about us. There's no such thing as free pizza. Here's some clients we work with. We do stuff. I worked at Channel 9 at NBN Television. I wasn't technically a journalist. I may have morphed into one. We worked in sort of their internal broadcast team to help turn around the news and the news packages quickly. But I used to work closely with the news journalist teams. And something that I took from the TV days across to digital advertising was those guys need to shoot and get stories out, and the news needs to get out at 6 o'clock every day. So we try to take a timely approach to our content for clients now. And we do grant that budgets aren't endless, and there's a new move with social and search traffic around digital content. It's currency. You want it out nice and quickly. So whether it's a brand story or a news story or something that's breaking, if you can have it sort of quicker, you're going to get rewarded with views and likes and shares. It's a thing called virality in that digital space. So yeah, some of our clients, we do some work with Hoyts, we've done streaming with Amazon Web Services, we've worked with MAAS, TEDx Sydney's taken a few of our original documentaries, really fun space to be. And we try to create several pieces of just original content each year that have been licensed by Toyota, Saatchi and NIB. So we try to take some risks to keep ourselves hungry and healthy and keep our skills up. Here's a short little piece, just my personal reel. Yeah,
These pictures are the work of filmmaker Jamie Andrei, who made liberal use of drones to get the shots he was after.
And Lionel joins us now from Sydney, along with Jamie Andrei, the producer of that film. Good morning to both of you. It's an extraordinary looking house. Jamie, how did it end up being the subject of a documentary? How did you find it?
I've known Lionel for a few years, and I've fallen in love with the place up there. It's 600 acres between two national parks, and I've always tried to come back to Balmain and explain it to my city friends what it looks like up there, and I couldn't do it with words. So as a filmmaker, the natural medium was to use film, and it's a great place to fly.
我为什么鼓励Jenny跳 pole dancing？ 因为我觉得 pole dancing 有2个好处，一方面呢是一个很好的体育锻炼，一方面呢也是一种艺术表现。因为舞蹈，所以我同意他把那个钢管装在我的来路里。
I'm hoping to continue to hold for exercise and in my career aspiring to become a cancer researcher and cancer doctor.
It seems like the perfect time to hit a water slide, at least in some parts of the world.
Southern Hemisphere.
Guys put on their Santa costumes, rigged up a gigantic water slide, grabbed their floaties, and they started going down the ramp.
There's a lot of extreme athletes out there that can do some pretty amazing things. One of the best athletes in the extreme world, Gumby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Very
Gumby.
stretchy.
This is cliff jumping in Sydney Harbour. These guys aren't base jumping, they don't have parachutes. This is just one of those giant rope swing kind of deals. Ooh. Here goes the first guy. And you see they've got the rope hooked up to this cliff that just juts out over the harbour. Here goes Gumby. Never really pegged him to be a man for adrenaline.
that's just to give you a little bit of context around some of the digital content that we create. And we've got a passion for innovation and technology. So the natural leap from traditional 2D filmmaking was to drones. So I got to fly drones through the Middle East. There's some great footage there on the Syrian border of Jordan and Syria with the Bedouin kids trying to catch a drone. But as I said, that natural leap in technology has led us to start to look at some of the VR and 360 technology that's out at the moment, and particularly around having that accessible. Because as I said, as a smaller business, we're a young company, we don't have $4 million just to pump into some awesome equipment that might sit there for 10 or 12 months of the year and we might get one job. So, and hence I want to talk around and been invited to talk about the mobile journalism space. So today we're going to just touch on what is 360 video. So an overview, a range of rigs, some watch outs and some rough examples. Some platforms. We're excited about 2 key platforms. A lot of manufacturers have their own bespoke platforms. With my digital background, it's all about fish where the fish are. So we're going to look at YouTube and Facebook. So I'm just going to talk through why they're easy to use, they're accessible, they're not going to cost you anything, and there's already eyeballs there, right? So have a think in your mind how you can start to leverage that, whether it's to drive engagement or get eyeballs back to your site, or is it time on site? But we'll touch on some of that. We'll look at a basic 2D. A 360 video workflow. So there are some workflow considerations that are a little bit different to traditional, let's say, filmmaking, whether it's a phone or one of the ENG cameras or even a DSLR. There's some different considerations in the post-production workflow. And we've got 6 cardboards. Has anyone who hasn't tried Google Cardboard? Awesome. Have another glass of wine, and at the end, you can come down and have a play. The neat thing about this is once you create this content, it's accessible on any phone. So it's Android or Apple, right? So that's why we're really passionate about YouTube and Facebook. You can create that content once, see it at several places, and then support it on any device. So you're going to have lots of cut through. And these are technically $2 to $5. You've probably heard of Oculus Rift. They're like $800 a pair. I just bought the new PlayStation 4. It was $600 or $700. And the 3D glasses for that's $800 a pair. So you can create 360 content that's supported on mobile, laptop, tablet. But then for $2, you can put anyone's phone in there, and now you've got pseudo VR immersion at a low cost. And for rolling out, look, we work with a lot of startups. So you want to test and learn and not sort of blow the budget on that first version. So it's a really great way to sort of get out there and start testing some content. And the great thing about the 360 stuff, you can create it once and use it on 4 or 5 different platforms. And if you want to go further down the rabbit hole, great, you can start doing Oculus Rift and CGI, but Google Cardboard and 360 video is a really neat way to do that. We've got some demos and questions at the end. So take notes. If there's any questions as I get cracking, feel free to write those down and we can get to them at the end. So I'm just going to start with what is. It's technically not VR. It's 360 video, so what we're capturing now, it's 2 wide-angle lenses. And it'll stitch it together in the camera, so it's technically catching a sphere, or think of it as a big fishbowl around this. So as I walk, as you view it, you can start to pan and follow me. But there's nothing too high-tech, it's just 2 wide-angle lenses similar to 2 GoPro lenses. And it's being stitched in that little device. You can get more sophisticated rigs. You'll probably we'll have a look at a bit of a picture, but there's rigs that they might have 5 or 6 GoPros linked together. Now with 5 or 6 GoPros, you've got to then go and stitch 5 or 6 GoPro footage together. You've got to color grade 5 or 6 GoPros. You've got to white balance 5 or 6 GoPros, and then edit it all with sound design. So your workflow and investment and time can go up quite quickly. I think it's in a good place now where it's usable, and I think future generations will get better. We will touch on that. There are trade-offs, because we're having a chat. This smaller rig, there's some distortion, and it is a little softer as you start to view the playback files. And there's a slightly different production approach. As I said, you just want to think about exposure, and you want to create a bit of a scene for the viewer. You always think about that customer, so you want to be customer-centric. Some of the best examples we've seen, there's some really bad examples. They just stick a 360 camera, and they're like, what? Never used it before, what do I do? As the viewer's watching it going, okay, what am I doing? But Discovery Channel did a really nice one with Mythbusters, where they scuba dived underwater and they had a really great narration. They spoke about the shipwreck on the left and the shipwreck on the right. So if you wanted to, you could follow them on that curated journey, or you could just go, bugger you, I'm just going to look around myself. So there's a real neat discoverability to 360, but I think initially we're going to have to start to handhold that audience and give them confidence, so they start to know where they're going. We're going to get to this cool, I'm a bit of a nerd, this is kind of a cool, whoa, too far. This is what we're seeing from a mobile journalist point of view. We're going to start to see, this is happening now, cameras where you can plug in a 360 camera on top. So it's generally 2 lenses. This is the Samsung Gear. It's only compatible with Samsung technology, so it's a little bit of a bugbear. You've got to get the Samsung VR that only talks to a Samsung phone, so it's not really ubiquitous. This thing's like from the deep sea. I have no idea what it is, but it's like a Kickstarter program. There's 4 or 5 cameras in that, but they start to go up. You'll see 2 lenses here. That's when they're trying to get towards like a 3D 360. I haven't played with that yet, but that's starting to happen now. And then you've got Kodak's got their own version, as you can see. 2 lenses, 2 wide-angle lenses. You can bolt those on. All the way through to the GoPro array. So there's like 20 GoPros there. So you've actually got 20 lenses, 20 different camera angles that you have to go and sync, color grade, stitch, and turn around. And if you've got 20 at 4K shooting in RAW, there's some nerdo terms there, lots of data, right? Tons of data. Gets expensive quickly. And then guys are putting these on, think of 360, it's going everywhere, it's going underwater, it's going up in the air as well under drones. And then people are trying to tell stories through 360 point of view. So you'll put this weird, it kind of looks like a medieval torture device. And you can actually walk people through your event or your scene or your amazing property. All the way through to, look, guys are rigging really complex cameras together to get a high sample rate. But once again, it gets really expensive and time intensive quickly. But I think that's kind of a cool little snapshot. And the device I'm recording on today, it said $400 or $500. And the output's compatible with Apple or Android or a desktop computer and an iPad. So I really think that's a neat way to get in and just start doing and experimenting. Now, here's some examples. I just think this was really neat. How neat is this? I think it's getting a bit silly. Everything that we've thought of people are doing. So this is a 17 camera rig. It's a bit of techo talk. It's filming in 12-bit, which is really super high quality. It's filming in 444, so there's no compression, it's raw. So the files are going to be Donald Trump style, huge, right? This is huge. And you have to sync all those files, and you need a supercomputer to store all those files. And it's something between 10 terabytes per hour of footage to film on this rig. This rig will fit 1 hour and 4K on it, on a 64 gigabyte card, so times that by 15. These are starting to get quite common. So I'd say they'd nearly be the next gen up from this. You're going to get an incremental benefit in sharpness. So it's 6 4K GoPros, but once again, it's a 7 or 8K rig by the time you build in the GoPros and the actual rig. And it's still reasonably complex. You have to sync those 6 cameras. You have to store that footage, that 4K footage, and then post-production wise, you've got to match it all and edit it. So it's still quite tricky. I'd still probably say that's a hard brief to get across the line with some clients that want to test and see, is this for us? What's the experience like? Can we release it to a smaller group of people to really get a gut feel before we double down our investment? But that's probably that middle ground at the moment. And this is with the mobile journalist hat on. Now, so we're just digging this. So between $500 or $1,000 bucks, you can get a little rig. That might be $385 now. The great thing is it's just 2 lenses. We don't really have to do any stitching. It's stitched in the camera for you. Supports live streaming, which is really great. I was going to try and live stream today in 360. I was going to plug it in, but I needed more gadgets, and I'm really here to talk to you, not to play with tech. And look, it's cheap. It's cheap, easy, and quick. It's very mojo friendly. But there are trade-offs with quality, but you can still do some really neat stuff. We did a product launch we had the new Maserati SUV Levante out here, and I just sat in the car with their head sales guys as he spoke about the cool features, and people could just have a little browse around. We're not going to win a Grammy for it, but I think it's had something like 16 or 24,000 views, something along those lines. But people could just have a little look, and they could see 2 humans talking about a product they hadn't seen. So we're building trust in that product. It was an open invitation to call the dealership and come down and pre-order. But yeah, they could actually just start to discover and have a little look, and we're looking at the control panels and the finishes and the things. So that was a really great little, I'm going to say neat again, I'm using neat a lot lately. There's a really great little case study. Now, I said there's no silver bullets. I don't know if you can see here, guys, because you're starting to stitch lenses, so some of those bigger cameras, you might have 4, 5, 6, 17 lenses. You're going to have to stitch and match that footage up, so it's technically seamless. So you're turning those camera angles into a seamless 360 scene. So stitching is going to be very common. I don't know if you can see here, but the back of the car doesn't align at all. So stitching lines are common problems, they're common things to keep an eye out. And as you start to view some of this content, you'll start to see stitching issues. Someone's head might disappear a little bit, or a bit of the car, or a bit of the scene, or the sky might start to look like the stitching's just gone wrong. Playing with mixed exposure is hard. So in this instance, there's a car with a sky, but how are you going to balance those exposures in the middle of the day, bright sun? So there are trade-offs. There's things you need to think about with your lighting and curation of that scene. And look, worst case, you can do it all in CGI if you have budgets. So you can start to build these virtual reality environments in full computer-generated environments. But there are trade-offs for now with the 360 video space. Generally softer images. We can't really see that there, but the plane's soft. The plane's flying overhead. We're getting burnout sky overexposed. And that's just another example of that trade-off with exposure with 360. There is some distortion with wide-angle lenses. So as you start to view it, things, it's like that fisheye lens. That things just sort of, the shape changes a little bit. It's a little bit vertigo-ish at times. And then also the apps that we're going to look at, there's compression again on the player side. So YouTube's going to add its own compression and Facebook's going to add its own compression. So if we are filming in a super high-res rig, once we get it to their players, they're going to down-res that compression a little bit anyway. So do we invest in a 30 grand rig and still at the mercy of their player compression? So it's that trade-off that your tech teams might need to work through, or you personally might just want to need to get comfortable with. So here's some examples. The cool thing is just start watching and looking at some content. There's some really clever content out there. Someone did it like a computer-generated 3D Pac-Man. It was pretty cool. I actually watched that for 20 minutes last night. It was kind of like you're in there. It's really, really fun. And you can have a play later, but here's some examples that I thought did a really great job of it. So I think these guys did a great job because they actually talk you through and curate it to a degree. So give the user that choice. They can either self-discover, but always give them a point of interest or a guiding voice. Oh, you can't scroll, can you?
So, welcome to Mythbusters Virtual Reality.
So I'll just pause here. Great thing about YouTube, it just supports laptop, desktop, oh fine. And then on the desktop, you'll use this mouse. You can use the mouse to scroll around, or there's a little arrow at the top. But they're cruising down to see a ship.
Adam, and no, however much you turn around, you won't see me because I'm not here. I'm just doing the narration. But the narration of what? Well, for Shark Week 2015, we tested the myth that sharks are scared of orca noises.
There's some stitching in the middle.
We conducted that experiment on a shipwreck. This video is a behind-the-scenes tour of that wreck in full 360 degrees. So as we descend, you can already see the reason why we came to this wreck in the first place. There's loads of sharks. If you look all the way around you, you're surrounded by, I reckon, what, 25 sharks?
I won't show all that, I'll put that in the deck, but they're doing a really great job just curating that experience. So he intros it, a lot of people aren't used to VR, and then you can he takes you on that journey, says look around, start to have a look. So you can either follow him, and then as you get going, you can choose to go, Buggy, I'm going to look at that shark or the fish or the shipwreck. So I think that's a really, really clever execution. This is what sold 360. I've been around digital and tech for a while. I'm like, Bitcoin, the internet. It's like, is it another fad? This is what really made 360 for me. It was a trailer for Disney's Jungle Book. Just a really nice scene. Think about it in that context of a scene. After I put this on, I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. So I'll play a little bit. And this is mega sound design, mega, CGI budgets. The Wi-Fi is killing us a little bit. But this through the glasses is awesome. So like, okay.
Yo, man.
And the Monkey King comes out.
I am the king of the bad Allah. Call me Louis. And you? I'm a man cub who wants to live in the jungle. You want to live here? You need a people to protect you. Only I can protect you, and I will for a price.
See, that's neat. You're in the scene. You're that character. When you can look around, you've got the monkey army starting to circle and surround you, getting a bit antsy with really cool sound design. So that's a great example. Yeah, that's me with the mouse here. I'm moving that around. So you've got two ways to consume 360. So you can use it with your mouse. So that's what's really neat on the desktop. You choose to move it yourself. So that's that discoverability. So they've set a scene and then you can start to, whoa, where am I? What are the monkeys? What's that sound? So they've got really great sound design as well. So you can start to pitch and look at sounds. On the mobile phone, you can just use the mobile phone's gyroscope and actually move the phone around. Or you can use your finger on the phone. And then once you get to the VR glasses, you put your phone in here and you can look around the scene. It's really cool. So we're going to have a play with that later. But that's what sold me through the glass. I'm like, wow, this is pretty powerful. I kind of like, just a quick example.
Welcome to Cairns and the Great Barrier Reef.
I thought these were good, but like, it's just a picture. Oh, the titles are cool, but I'm just like, what are you showing me? I'm now in the air. Oh, I'm now in the water. So I think it's a really nice tourism example, but I think they could do more to actually create that user. And it's great that I can look around, but is there storytelling? Like what? So I think there's a bit they could do. And I said they do recommend you should probably crossfade instead of jump cutting between things because it is VR. There's a suspension of disbelief. It can be a little bit like disorientating just to suddenly split between the two. And they've spent a bit of money on that. That's probably that mid-level rig. And as I sent out the deck, you'll have a look. There is softness. There's a trade-off there with softness. And you can see some stitching here as well. So there's just one other one. Oh, this is just fun. This is a Facebook one. They've just stuck a 360 on an eagle. Just because it's kind of cool. So it's nearly like when the first GoPros came out, we had an explosion in content. It wasn't necessarily good content, but it was a range of content and people were taking risks and experimenting and being creative. So I think that's where, if it plays, I think that's where 360 is at the moment, having things accessible. Now the thing, we'll get to Facebook in a little bit, but it has some limitations. It's not VR compatible. It doesn't support 4K. It only supports HD. So at least YouTube supports 4K. It's still a bit softer. There's that trade-off, but YouTube has a few other pluses. But yeah, I'll share the deck. We can have a little look in your own time. Now there's two key platforms. There's a bunch of bespoke ones, but if it's hard to use and you can't share it, like with my digital background, it needs to be accessible. I need to be able to share it, and my friends need to be able to share it and like it and need to digest it. If I'm watching on someone's bespoke app and then I send you the link and then you've got to sign up for an account or it doesn't work, forget about it. No one's going to use it. There'll be no uptake. So we're most excited about YouTube and Facebook. YouTube, you get some of the best engineering teams on the planet for free. Supports Google VR viewing natively, your 360 content. You just technically upload your file and then it's just, you don't have to do too much. We'll go through a workflow, but you get it up there and it starts working in 360. Sharing and embedding is easy. You can use it on any device, so laptop, desktop, tablet or phone. As I said, use the same content several ways, so that's great from a return on investment point of view. You've suddenly got 360, but then it's mobile friendly, then it's also VR, so you might get some PR cut through launching VR content. So it natively supports the glasses. Google has huge search traffic volume, so people are searching for things and YouTube videos start to surface to the top, so you're actually going to get new eyeballs as well. Facebook's great, but it's more of people that are already fans of mine, or we can make something viral, so you're less likely to get, it's a long bow, but less likely to get new people on Facebook. But if you're doing it good on YouTube, you can use all your keywords and search tricks to start to get new viewers and start to build that momentum, and whether it's clickbacks to the site or shares and things. I'm just really excited about YouTube. YouTube has lots of creators, lots of searchable content. There's some 3D stereoscopic stuff on there as well, so you can actually go and start to play on YouTube, and they've got some great playlists. You can search it and find all this awesome content in seconds. Facebook I couldn't find. It took me too long to find good content, and I got the shits and stopped trying to find it. It was just too hard. The user experience is just so different. But Facebook is great. Social's key. Social's going nowhere, so you do need to publish on both platforms. As you know, Facebook's got 1.2 billion active daily users. Once it's in there, you can actually start to boost it as well. So if you want to get views and shares, you can put a little bit of paid behind it. It doesn't have to cost the earth. Doesn't support VR, and it does have some resolution limits. So in YouTube at the moment, you can go up to 2K, 4K, 6K in some instances. It's not going to play. I couldn't get any of those files to play because the internet just broke. But they're at least supporting it. But on Facebook, they've got a max res of 1920 by 1080 from memory. So it can get soft, and they're running their own transcoders as well. So do we buy an awesome, expensive rig that degrades anyway once you get it into their player? So it's up for you to decide. And it doesn't support VR, so maybe they will at some stage. This is a couple really simple, lazy screen grabs. There's a whole virtual reality channel on YouTube. You can just go through there and start to look at video games, horror films, tourism stuff, all sorts of great stuff to get some ideas on 360. That's just an example of a 360 video clip, so you can get some. This guy actually walks through the scene and the dancers come with him, so it's a whole curated scene. It's a whole spectacle. They haven't been lazy and just popped a camera there. There's a mix of some CGI. That's what it'll look like on your phone when you go into that VR mode. And that's a Google Cardboard. You just simply load your phone into the front of the Google Cardboard, so we can have a play later. I've got a link there to the virtual reality channel. It's really fun. You can spend 15, 20 minutes there and get 5 or 6 points of inspiration or points of references, or it can help you research. Facebook, I said it's pretty simple. There's no VR support. You need to use your mouse to drag or your phone to drag. And that's just an example of their search. There's like 6 things to find versus a whole dedicated channel broken out into playlists. So a great way to find inspiration. Now, workflow is probably a big one. Prepare your scene, think about your audience. It doesn't have to be complex, but just think about that positioning. Think about the viewer. So you could be delivering a piece of camera or a short news story, but give them something relevant to look at. If there's a fire, are you near the fire truck somehow? Can they have a pan around? And with the smaller cameras, you do want to keep things of interest a little bit closer, because the further they are, they will degrade. So be aware of some of those. I said I do think you need to curate your scene, similar to the Discovery Channel, where they just sort of said, look, we're heading to the thing, look at the sharks, take a look around the reef, give it some context. With Tourism Queensland, I was just suddenly all over the place. It was cool, but I'm like, whoa, I've been teleported. Consider visual prompts in post-production, so fade between scenes, or you can put some arrows and text and titles. So we'll get to the post-production workflow shortly, but it's use your standard NLE, non-linear editing tool, to drop in prompts and text and things. It's quite accessible. There will be a little bit of post-transcoding. You need to go from that 2D view or the 2-camera view to like this mashed up 360 view, but then you can edit it. But we'll touch on that. But get your edit right. So you can start to add your titles, graphics. You can do a little bit of sound design there if you want to, sync audio. And there's a thing called a nadir. So this is filming at 360. We might see the camera base, but you can actually put in like a little graphic. You can have like a little circle, looks like a plate, that says jamieisawesome.com at the bottom. So you can use that for some branding. So they call that a nadir. So that's a neat way to cover your tripod if your camera doesn't fully stitch. And then the last piece is, so we go from those 2 lenses, it gets transcoded into this sort of really warped, distorted image. We'll have a look at that. Put that into your non-linear editing suite, edit that as you need to, drop in your audio as you need to, and then just export it. But the last thing you'll need to do is bake in the metadata. It sounds complex. It's just an app just goes, which file, this file, 360, click, and it puts in like an XML file. So when you watch it on your computer, before you upload it, it's this stretched file. It doesn't make any sense. But as soon as you send it to the encoders at YouTube or Facebook, it sees the little file and goes, oh, it's a 360 image, and goes, and stretches it for you. So it's pretty simple. It looks a bit weird initially. The first few edits, you're going to go, ooh, don't quite know what's going on. But get 2 or 3 of them done, and you'll start to get a real a good feel for it. So that's how it's recording now, just 2 fisheye angles. We don't do anything too fancy. I said we're a time and materials business. We need guys and girls doing stuff. So in the Rika app, natively, I think you asked which app we use, it'll stitch it to this skewed view. So this is a flat 360. We'll edit this in Premiere, put in our sound design, and then we'll export it. As we export it, it actually looks like this. That last step is to add that metadata, which is just a simple tool that says, this. You pick the file, this file is 360, and it adds like an XML marker to that file. Or the other thing is, if you do upload and it still looks like this, you've done it wrong. You'll have to go back and add your spatial data. This happened a few times. I'm like, why does it look squishy and weird. We just had to go back and just check that our spatial data was in. So if you create something, you'll probably do that once or twice. And this was some pro guys that got it really, really wrong. They're trying to sell us awesome cameras, but yeah, they couldn't get their rendering right. That's what it looks like in your timeline. We use Premiere Pro. So I said you can see it's a bit weird, wild and squishy, but you just edit it just as you would any 2D footage. You just get used to that distortion. It's not going to look quite right as you edit. That's pretty, I'm just going to go back. That's pretty simple. So it captures it like that. You transcode it so it looks squishy, so it's a flat 360. You then go through and edit it as you would any 2D clip, add in sounds, music, titles, that great stuff. I'd probably put a fade between the two. And then you render it out with that XML spatial data, and then once it hits the servers at Facebook or YouTube, it's now this 360 sphere that you can view. Here on the left is what they call a nadir. We did that for a client. We did just a fun, really tacky Christmas video. We just sat around and said Happy Christmas, and we were dressed with dorky tinsel. And they just said, thanks guys, thanks for a great year, but people could look around. But to cover the tripod in that post-production, we just put in a little graphic that when you render it out, it's this logo at the bottom, so you don't see the ugly tripod. In the middle of in the middle there, that's what happens on the YouTube app. Once you press Google Cardboard, you don't have to do anything. You've uploaded it. That's it. It's free now. People press the Google Cardboard, and now it's in VR. And on the right, there's just an example, another discovery example where they've just got some titles as well. So as the boat's cruising along, they're telling you where it is and what it's doing. Reasonably straightforward. It will take some time to test. We've got 6 to demo. If you've got the YouTube app, you should be able to just go straight in, put your phone in, and have a bit of a play. And granted, there's some smart people in a room, and you're probably at different levels. So just thanks for having me.